Hi guys, and welcome back to How I Failed in Business. I'm sorry. I don't know where I was going with that. It felt okay. All right.
You know how I said like we rarely have to cut anything. It normally flows. Yeah.
Keep this in, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Failing podcast. Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to the How I Failed in Business podcast, where we're here again with business leaders and entrepreneurs to talk about not their successes, but how they've failed in business, their mishaps, their major misunderstandings, and their big business blunders. I'm Sophia Grace, and with me as always.
And I'm Rob Spence.
Okay, and this week we have a very special guest, Luke Tobin.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for coming.
So Rob's been a fan for a long time.
I know.
I'm a newly introduced fan, but for people that might not be familiar with you, could you introduce yourself?
Of course. Thank you. Slightly cringe, but thank you. The name's Luke Tobin. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have built and sold 3 businesses, had 4 failed businesses, and very much looking forward to getting into some of those learnings.
Fantastic.
Wow, fantastic.
I did think, when we came downstairs, when you think, have I shared too much? Because I'll say on camera what I said off camera, big admirer. I've seen, what you've been doing over the years. We've shared the same rooms at some awards and stuff, and I've always, so I remember at the Entrepreneur Awards last year in London, I was like, oh, Luke, I know Luke's here somewhere. When I see him, I'll grab hold of him, say hello. But it was a massive, massive room, wasn't it?
It was huge. Yeah, hundreds of people there.
Yeah, probably the biggest awards I've been to. But no, it's great to finally sit you down and talk through with you.
Likewise, good to be here.
Yeah. And an award that you have won in your career as well.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, the Creative Industries Entrepreneur of the Year. That was for the Midlands area. It's nice. It's great for PR, and it's nice to get a pat on the back sometimes when you're running a business, isn't it? So
absolutely.
Exactly. So we know sort of where entrepreneurship has taken you, but where did you sort of get started in it?
Yeah, kind of early life. I think probably if I go back to childhood, my dad was always very entrepreneurial. So I grew up in a house where, he was very driven. I think that kind of fed into me. And on the flip side to that, 'cause my parents were divorced, my mum never had any money. So I realised that actually I really want to make sure I can earn some cash and have some options. So first business was when I was 18. I started a drinks company, effectively, bar hire, events company. And from there, just went on a journey of basically starting many, many companies over the years.
Nice. It's always a very open-ended question.
Yeah.
And you introduce yourself as a serial entrepreneur. And this is a question I've not prepared you for, so I do apologise. But what does the word entrepreneur mean to you?
I think at different times it means different things. I think now at this stage in my career, in many ways, there's an element of responsibility to it because I have a lot of team members and staff that kind of sit around me. I think early on it was opportunity and freedom and a chance to shape things the way I wanted them to be. And I still see that in a lot of the kind of new ventures that I go into.
And you mentioned your first business was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, you mentioned you had this upbringing as it was, but did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur? At what stage did you think, I'm going to run a business, I'm going to do this, that, and the other?
I can remember being a teenager. I don't know exactly what age, but a teenager, and scribbling down business ideas. I wanted to kind of create. I can remember scribbling this down in the book somewhere, like an adventure park, and probably a kid's dream of going to it rather than owning it. But always had little ideas, and I think for me, I wasn't that academic. I think I got 5 GCSEs above a C. So for me, it was kind of just enough to get into college. Went to drama college, again, kind of avoiding the academic type subjects, and did drama. So I had to find something else that drove me or was going to give me an opportunity to go back to those ideas of I don't want to be poor and I want to have freedom. I'm going to need to lean into something else. And actually for me early on, it was commercial kind of sales type roles.
Okay.
And I actually think that kind of foundation of learning to sell, learning to be comfortable with other people really set me up for the kind of success that I had in businesses later as well. And those early businesses that I had, those first 3 or 4 that failed, so all the early ones failed, I kind of see that as my university. That was my business course that I went on. Cost me a bit of money, a bit of time and stress and all the rest of it, but it was definitely worth it in the long run.
Yeah. Are you thankful for those failures, would you say?
Absolutely. I think our failures are what define us. I think if we if we only had successes, we wouldn't really know that they were successes, right? It's a bit like anything. You only know, you only appreciate people once someone else has messed you around, or you only love when you know the opposite of it. It's the same principle in business. You have to make mistakes in order to know what success looks like.
Amazing. So you had those sort of failings early on, which we'll come back to because that's why we're all here. But so you've realised that you might have a bit of a flair for entrepreneurship. You know, it's not gone perfectly, but you know that there's something there. When did you decide to maybe marry that up with digital marketing? How did that kind of come about?
Yeah, the digital marketing bit came a little bit later. I'd actually had my fourth business, which was an experience day company. I actually started selling offline to start with, in shopping centres, again, leaning into the sales kind of career that I'd had. We're selling things from hot air balloons to car racing, paintballing. You know, you've probably seen guys out selling similar packages on the high streets, and anywhere we could find footfall, we'd sell. And we'd pay for shopping centre bookings and all the rest of it. Somebody said to me actually in one of those locations, I can remember it, I was in Peterborough, they were like, why aren't you online selling? Like, I'd go online and buy this, I'm not going to buy it today. And I was like, online, let's explore this. And this was like 2009. And I just didn't have a clue where to start. Hadn't had a website of my own before. Certainly didn't know what digital marketing was. So went on a journey of self-discovery, to be honest. Started learning everything I could get my hands on about digital marketing. And actually came to sell that business later to a large competitor. And off the back of that, I thought, actually, I really want to learn a bit more about digital marketing. So I started applying for digital marketing jobs. And that's why I then first got my agency job and fell into it, loved it, found that I had a real passion for it. Hated the way that the client relationship between the agency and the client operated, though. There was always kind of a no man's land where an area of kind of misinformation sits on one side to the other. So the agency needs to make money, so it has to be really stringent with hours and time. Client often doesn't think that the agency's that aligned to what they're trying to do, and it can cause, it can cause headaches. So I really wanted to find a way of bridging that gap, which is why I decided to launch my own agency.
Nice. So do you think that perhaps bearing a company out of a passion that you had for it was maybe what immediately started to see that traction, see it maybe be successful? Do you think perhaps it was the one that you were maybe the first a bit more committed to
I think so. Sense? I think, in a lot of ways, when I was younger, I was kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I always kind of semi-committed. And I often talk about this with my team as well, that if you want something to work, you need to put full momentum into it. You have to have full laser focus and momentum. Absolutely. I think the passion is important. I think if you don't have passion in what you do, it's after a while, it becomes really hard to get out of bed. And when you get those knockbacks and you get those failures, and they're going to come to anyone in business, you're not going to get up and do it. You're not going to want to, right? And that's why I think probably 9 out of 10 businesses do fail, because there isn't the real drive.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this with Paragon. You said countless times that it's impossible to start a business when you still have a job, but no one wants to leave their job to go and start a business. It's this sort of catch-22 that so many people that have that idea and they know that they would execute it really well, but it's that leap of faith that you've then got to put in, which you decided to put in. And of course, likewise, maybe one day I will.
No, you won't. No. I was going to say, we'll set up a partnership. You'll be fine. You'll be absolutely fine. So I want to dig deeper into these, I'll call them failures. It sounds quite harsh and severe. You've had these 4 businesses that failed.
Yeah.
Can you share some of those stories with us at all?
Of course, I'd love to. So the first one, the bar hire company. So I kind of went into that without any understanding of cash flow management, resourcing, because I was kind of naturally okay at selling. I basically hit the phones and rang around all of these concerts that were going on in the UK, and I landed on this company called IML Concerts. Now, at the time, they had contracts for about 30 events across the UK that summer, and they'd been let down by another provider. And they said, well, do you have a bar unit? Do you have a team? Do you have all the resources to do this? I was like, yeah, absolutely. No, we didn't. Didn't have a clue. Didn't have any of it resourced. Didn't have any capital behind me to do it. I was like, yeah, we can do it. We can take it on. So sent over the contract. I signed it. And then we had to deliver these 30 events. Now, off the back of that, I scrambled, managed to get all the alcohol on tick from a wholesaler, and it was sale or return. So again, I was like, okay, we can make this work. they gave us the first batch for free. So, well, not free, but, you know, pay us 30 days later. So it just started to flow. And the first few went really well. But then there were some bigger events where we had to have 7.5 truck lorries. It was 2006 and the smoking ban came in. So, and it was really wet weather. I really remember, like, that year was so wet. I think it was one of the wettest ones on history. And I was trying to bring in uni students to come in and work the bars. Sometimes I was bringing in too many. Other times I wasn't bringing in enough. Wasn't having enough stock. Was having too much stock. It was a disaster. And 3 times that summer we had to be pulled out in our articulated lorry by a tractor out the fields because it was that wet. And we were popping up, like, the bar units I got were like second-hand ones that I'd managed to find. They weren't really fit for purpose. You know, it was okay. I think we did an all right job. I came out of it in the end kind of break even, but I think that could have been an incredible business. I still do. I mean, I've seen so many businesses in that space go on to thrive and make a load of money at it. I just was, you know, wet behind the ears and didn't know what I was doing. So I think the learning there is I probably should have got a bit of help, you know, a co-founder or someone that was already in the space. Maybe I should have gone and done a partnership strategically and said, look, I've got these contracts. Do you want to work with me on it? But I didn't know any of that at the time. I thought, okay, I've just got to try and fulfill this.
And from a leadership point of view, because I don't want to be ageist at all, but you were 18, I think you mentioned, you know, quite young, really.
Yeah,
you know,
young. Yeah.
How was that stepping into that role of leadership? You're trying to drive this business forward, looking after these teams. You know, like you say, you're 18, 19, probably, if not younger, the same age as the people you're trying to lead. How did that marry up?
Often difficult. I couldn't drive either, so I had to get someone that could drive the truck, and there was all sorts of stuff that I came up against with that. I think I've always liked people, and I think that helped. So, you know, I probably also, you know, wasn't as committed as I should have been. You know, was having late nights on the bar as well with the team members, and probably not leading by example always the right way. But at that age, you know, it's hard to know right from wrong. So yeah, it was a learning curve, and I think a steep learning curve probably. There was quite a few people that I probably didn't handle the right way, and you know, I had to learn. But I do think across my businesses, even the more recent businesses, I'm learning every day when it comes to people, right? How to get the most from them, what motivates them, what inspires them. And I think naturally, actually, in most of my businesses, because I'm very entrepreneurial, I'm very kind of visionary driven, and I have a new idea every 5 minutes. I've not always been naturally the best manager. Right. In general, because I know what I want, but I often find it quite hard to articulate to somebody else. And if they don't get it quickly, that can frustrate me, and it shouldn't frustrate me because it's probably my training that's the issue. But over time, I've learned to be a better manager and a better leader. But yeah, I think there is a bit of a disconnect sometimes between those two roles of kind of that leader and the visionary piece.
I want to say brave. It is quite brave to admit that, because I've said it before. You know, I'm learning as a leader, as an MD, and everyone learns. Unfortunately, on the job, there's no training. Well, there's trainings, but there's no training manual of how to be a good MD, how to be a good manager, how to be a good boss, and sort of seeking that feedback is so crucial, isn't it? Really, in terms of with that bar business, you've let that go. Then that's gone. I know you've taken quite a nice holistic approach of learning from that now, which is fantastic.
Hindsight, yeah.
What were the emotions when it all failed back then?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was very disappointing. I was lucky enough to come out of that without any real loss of capital. I kind of broke even on it, so that was okay. So then I had a couple of years in a job, worked in a recruitment job. Then I kind of fell into my next business, and then I do another job for a little bit, and then fall into something else. So I went through this kind of transient stage, I think, for maybe 10 years, where I would do a business, it would either work or fail, and then I'd kind of go back into some comfort, some security for a little while. Then after a couple of years, get an itch again and go do something else. And that's kind of how I operated for the best part of my 20s, really.
Wow. And sorry, Sophia, you go.
No, it's okay. So obviously that ended up working very well. Now you're in the point where you're not having to sort of defer back to sort of regular employment. Do you think if that hadn't been the case, you would still now be in that same cycle? Is that do you think you'd always fall back into wanting, oh no, but I could maybe do this? Do you think that's still
probably? I think, you know, you, I think if you're entrepreneurial and you are hungry for more, whatever that driver is inside you, I think you'll always find a way to explore it.
That pull's just there.
It's always there. Yeah. Nice. And even though I needed some security financially at different times, so I'd go to the job and for some learning. And actually, I'm very pleased that I did a lot of the jobs and the experience that I did do, because it kind of sets you up again with a different level of learning. It's constant learning, isn't it, that you just wouldn't have otherwise. So yeah, I know a lot of people that I mentor now, they've gone into a business very early on and they've set up their own business, but then they're having to learn everything on that job with no experience for kind of soft skills or professional skills from outside of that experience. So that can be a challenge. So yeah, I think that transient period, again, I see that as my kind of educational years, really.
Yeah, sort of learning in that office environment. Like you say, you've taken a sort of non-conventional university path where you've learned in all these ways. Yeah. So you've had your business, it's failed, you've gone back into employment, and then you've got another itch for it, and you've gone, oh no, I've got another idea. So what's kind of happened there?
Yeah, so after the bar hire, I met a guy who was running a small photography studio, and he wanted to start selling kind of portfolios to males and females, so they could use that for their kind of modelling careers, auditions, whatever it might be. But he didn't have a sales acumen at all, and he said, look, is there a way that we could kind of partner up on this? I said, yeah, absolutely, I can set you up a direct sales team, we can start selling this. And that was my first step into kind of direct selling. And we went from a point where he was doing a handful a week to bookings 3 months out. And he was like, I'm going to have to get some support, some help. So that actually scaled really quickly. But then we got a little bit kind of carried away, and we thought, well, let's take on another studio somewhere else. I was in Oxford at the time. So we had a studio in a place called Jericho there. We opened another one in just outside Oxford in a place called Woodstock. And yeah, it kind of, that one was really hard to fill. The Oxford one was really easy. So then we had all these costs, and it started getting a little bit carried away. In the end, the guy bought me out of that business. So I exited. I don't count that as an exit because it was just a bit of a payoff. But it was an interesting learning. And what I realized, that space is so competitive. If you want to actually get those, so once you've got the portfolios, that's great. Then if you actually want to go out and win work to actually get them into modelling jobs or stuff, it's just tied up by about 6 operators in the UK. And outside of that, it's almost impossible to get them into stuff. So it wasn't really a viable business, but again, was something that was interesting. After that, I stepped back in and started doing a sales job for a little while. And then decided to go to Australia for 2 years. Whilst I was in Australia, I spun up my Experience Day company and started selling packages there. Then came back to the UK, started selling Experience Day packages here. I had teams of about 60 people across the two continents, and that went pretty well. And then launched online, as I mentioned earlier. It kind of, I would say the Australian business floundered because I wasn't focused on it after a while, and that did fail. But the one in the UK did really well, and I got an exit. My first kind of 6-figure exit, low 6-figure, but it was enough to kind of buy me my first house and put me in a really good position. And then obviously the marketing piece came off the back of that.
Yeah. Wow.
Exciting. Before we play our first game, I want to touch upon this because I, as a salesperson myself, I'm a sales nerd. You've mentioned sales, and selling a lot. For business owners, business leaders, entrepreneurs, how important is sales as a skill to those individuals?
I think it's absolutely fundamental. If you think about what drives a business from its kind of idea stage up to scale, it's how well you can convey and sell that message to other people, whether that's selling your internal team and building your tribe around you to help grow your business, or it's selling to a third party to actually buy your services or your product. It's all selling, right? Every day we are selling in some capacity when we interact with other human beings. It's as simple as that. So for me, it's been the fundamental. In the marketing agency, we from day one kind of went from kind of 0 revenue to 5 million revenue in 5 years. And we only achieved that through selling ahead of our competition. Simple as that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. You ready for our first game?
Go on.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Okay.
So the first game, I believe, is Mystery Mishaps. So
you've not got your notes.
I've not trimmed it down. How unprofessional is this? I mean, look at these cue cards made out of Amazon boxes. Like stuff stuck on it.
People are gonna think that we're not fully prepared.
We are never fully prepared. Right. So welcome to Mystery Mishaps. So this is the part of the show where I'm going to share with you 5 clues, and you've got to guess. It could be a business, it could be a brand, it could be a software, it could be a solution, it could be a hardware. There's that was once there and then vanished.
Okay.
Now, I did say off camera that this perhaps is the hardest one to date, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, it's something I've never heard of,
Oh,
okay? So I think we're
right.
going to really be clutching at straws, but it's only because of how quick you are to the post.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're the pro at this, so.
So I really didn't think that I would be, and then all of a sudden I found my specials. It's all those years of pub quizzes.
Okay.
I'm
always useless at pub quizzes, so.
I've
got
got one on Monday every week.
So, this was a promising high-speed transportation startup once hailed as the future of travel, but it failed due to technical challenges and financial difficulties, leading to its closure before launching its first route. So clue number 1, this startup aimed to revolutionise public transportation with an ambitious vision of near supersonic travel through low-pressure tubes using levitating pods.
I can't even drive.
Was it not a Virgin spin out that did this? I'm sure they've tried to do it like a.
I'll need to check that. I'm not too
Okay.
sure. It could be. It sounds
Okay.
like something that
Yeah.
Virgin would do. Absolutely. But any
Is it
guesses
like-
so far?
I don't know. I'm thinking. So you're travelling through tube, like when you put the post in the.
Yeah, but bigger scale, I assume. Like,
Basically like something out of a science fiction movie.
Really, isn't it?
It
It's very
is.
Futurama.
Yeah.
I'll give you clue 2. So they
Okay.
promised to drastically cut travel times between cities, potentially making a long commute a thing of the past.
Like
Cities.
hypersonic travel.
Is this something like they've got in Japan, like the bullet train?
Oh, I think it's better than that.
Yeah, but is that the part of the world where they're trying to sort of
Maybe.
roll it out?
Essentially, I'll give you clue 3. I'll be honest, none of these clues are going to give you
Yeah,
too
you're just telling
Yeah.
us more about
Yeah. I
this
think
thing that
I've-
doesn't exist.
I've gone one extreme to the other here, I think.
You
I've gone from
have a little
BlackBerry
bit.
phones to this. Their prototype received significant media attention and investment from high-profile backers, including major technology figures. So it wasn't a
Okay.
well-known thing at the time.
I mean, it just sounds like something out of Demolition Man to me.
It does. What a great film, by the way.
It's a great
film.
movie, yeah.
Yeah.
Despite the hype, the company faced numerous technical hurdles, regulatory challenges, and escalating costs that delayed their progress.
That's not helping.
Still nothing. By the early 2020s, after a series of layoffs and restructuring efforts, they announced the cease, or the cessation, I can't read now, of their project, and company was effectively dissolved.
I have heard of something like a Hyperloop type system, which this reminds me of, and I know Virgin were involved in something, and I think at some stage, maybe even Elon Musk, but I'm not sure.
No? Okay. Sophia, any ideas? Any guesses? It's not BlackBerry.
Here's the thing. So it's not BlackBerry. The only thing that I was thinking is this some sort of Tesla type thing where he's sort of had this thought in his head?
Well, Elon does own the Boring Company, doesn't he?
He does.
Yeah, I think with Virgin you've got a good guess. I don't know anything about this
Well,
stuff.
I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I'm going to give half a point to Luke. Simply because the name of the technology was Hyperloop,
Boom.
which you
Okay.
did mention,
There we go.
transportation technologies. So HTT, Hyperloop Transportation Technologies.
I mean,
You
that
were
was
nearly
pretty
there.
I think
close.
you've got
Oh,
it.
fair play. Because you said something earlier on. You said Hyper, so it was different to Hyperloop. You said something.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't remember what you said. But yeah, the second you said Hyperloop.
Right.
So
There we
yeah,
go.
there we go.
Got
So that's
it.
probably our hardest.
Knocked off
Um,
my
taking
my
you off there.
pedestal there.
Exactly.
at that time, to be honest. But on that note, we'll take a very short break. Stay tuned after these short messages where we're going to ask Luke some more questions. Hello, I'm Rob Spence,
And I'm Sophia Grace.
and welcome to How I Failed in Business.
Simon Cowell rang me the night before and was like, this is, not going to work. I want you in a white dress. I want you to look angelic. And I want you to sing Nessun Dorma.
You know, for a business podcast, I didn't expect quite so much gyrating, I'll be honest. But it was really, really something.
I wasn't expecting that word.
I took my eye off the ball. Not only did it nearly break the business financially, it genuinely broke me.
On this podcast, we take a not so serious look at business, told through the stories of business owners, entrepreneurs, freelancers, investors, and every interesting character we can get our hands on.
Our mission is to remind everyone that mishaps happen, being in business isn't always plain sailing, and that we are all human after all.
And if we can laugh along the way, everyone's a winner.
And today on Who Wants to Be a Bovril Heir, I'd like to welcome my guest, Sophia Grace. Sophia, welcome to Who Wants to Be a Bovril Heir. Would you say you're a Bovril expert or a Bovril amateur?
Bovril amateur.
Well, just then, the sound of a police siren
Nino.
echoed from outside, followed by the slam of a car door.
Slam.
What? Mystery mishaps. In this section, I will share with you 5 clues about a company that has failed, done some blunders, made some mistakes, and you have to name the company.
Okay.
Easy enough?
I am a digital marketing pro with a managerial background in events, sales, and marketing. I've got a love of all things creative, strategy, and branding.
And I am an internationally renowned sales trainer, sales author, sales coach, and also the founder and managing director of a multi-award-winning sales and marketing agency.
Between us, we're here to tell the stories of entrepreneurs without taking life so seriously.
I set up Swansea's only speed dating company.
And also, no one else is saying this, but no.
I feel like you're going to slap me.
No, this is not the time. This is not the time for it.
And then Community Shield, Wembley, I think it was Arsenal and Man City. And singing the national anthem. Again, I went through my classic anxiety. Don't forget the words, everybody knows.
The second thing is wealth. So the wealth is not just money. Wealth is the time, freedom, actually being able to recharge the batteries, being able to create, being able to have different, times of the year where you're pulling and pushing back and stuff.
Join us every Tuesday and Friday for another hilarious and entertaining episode of How I Failed in Business.
Because behind every failure is another business success story waiting to be told. Welcome back to How I Failed in Business. Now, Luke, I saw a LinkedIn post from yourself. I think it was literally probably only 3 or 4 days ago from the time of recording this.
Mm-hmm.
You've put a great video out there where you're talking about you've fired a client and, without ruining the story too much, which I'd like you to go into, but you've fired a client that, it's £120,000 a year, I think the revenue was. Tell us this whole story if that's okay.
Yeah, they've been one of many over the years. That particular client, we'd had been working with them for just over a year, and it's great revenue, pays for a few salaries, and the problem is, I think, and you'll know this being in the marketing agency as well, everything kind of ebbs and flows to what the client wants in the agency, and sometimes that really works well. Other times it can be a real demand and stress on the team. A couple of years ago, I'd gone through an experience of having some difficult clients, and I was scared to act, and we lost a lot of the team morale. A few people left. Off the back of that, a few people followed them, and we just had this really awkward, horrible stage in the business. And I thought, you know what, never again. So since then now, if I start to see these warning signs, these kind of red flags, these triggers, if you like, which tends to be, clients moving goalposts constantly, expectations always changing, agreeing to results and then them saying they didn't agree to them, those sorts of things, and general murmurs from the team that there's some sort of discontent going on, I tend to act on it quite quickly. So we'll go back and we've actually built out what's called a business and strategy team now, who sit as the kind of client liaison, client kind of driver, if you like, of the relationship. Much more than just an account manager. They are there and aligned on strategy. But if they start to go, actually, Luke, this is really not working, then we'll often sack clients. And, over the years, I dread to think now how much money potentially that could have been that we've let go. 120k is the tip of the iceberg. But by bringing that kind of support in for the team members, you tend to find that the clients that are banging the drum and jumping up and down the most tend to get the most attention. But the ones that are being quiet are probably the ones that you should really be spending the time on, because they're the good clients. So by getting rid of those ones quite quickly and not procrastinating, we're able to then rechannel time and energy into the clients that deserve it, and often upsell them and whatever. So I really don't think it's had, over time, as bigger impact on revenue as it could have had. So it sounds like a really scary and big number, and it's quite impactful on social media, obviously. And it is a big number, but I think you have to make these calls as a leader and show your team that you'll support them. So that's what we did.
I think that's fantastic. I think, you know, you say obviously you've lost this figure and it's nothing to sort of like pass over, but obviously it's cost you team members in the past, and you've got to think about the work that they're not then able to do, or the perhaps substandard level of work that they're motivated to do, and what that could in knock-on cost you with clients leaving because they're suddenly not satisfied, or you're not able to then take on the next client that's willing to pay that amount to mirror it. But I can understand how scary that would be, and I think we have the exact same thing. You know, we're that outsourced third party as well, and we've definitely had clients where it's like, can it be worth this?
Sleepless
Surely
nights, and
not.
you start thinking, God, you know, is it worth the pain? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like for any lead, I remember a friend of mine, you know, a close business friend of mine, once telling me about this, sacking clients. I was like, what do you mean you're sacking clients? Like, it makes no sense. Like, you need, and you know, he was going through the same kind of thing that you've been through. And ironically, we have suffered with it so much as an agency and a team since inception, really. And when you look back, you think about, like you say, the sleepless nights, the toxicity, the stress. You see that client call you and you go, oh, you know, you just get that sinking feeling. And there's always that heartache and that pain when they do eventually leave or whatever. But actually there's that sense of relief.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. You know, and you think, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't I do this sooner? So that's something you kind of keep on top of now. Is that something that your team are trained to look out for, all these red flags?
Yeah, so we have what's called a kind of retention triage meeting every Tuesday, and we'll flag any discontent in there from team members or from clients, and if there's churn risk or whatever it might be. So we have a session dedicated to understanding and stress testing what those relationships are like and where they are. One thing I can tell you as well, going back to kind of, because it is hard to make that first call on this stuff, and I think as salespeople, Rob, you and I, especially from a sales background, it goes against everything that we're trained to do, right? To bring in money is what we're supposed to do. So the idea of cutting it away just feels very alien. But one thing I can guarantee you is that client would have left or would leave anyway. All I'm doing is getting 1 or 2 months ahead of it. So it's not 120 grand, it's maybe 10, 20 grand. Actually, it's maybe 10, 20% of what it sounds like it is, because they would never have stayed another year anyway. But to the team, it's a huge impact, because it shows that actually you're willing to make the sacrifices, short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And have you noticed an uptake in morale and sort of that team, because they know that the leader's there to support them? Right?
Definitely. And don't get me wrong, I don't think I've always got it right from a culture perspective either. There's things I haven't always done right, and I think, you know, there's that, again, it's that constant learning to be a leader, and when you're not naturally a manager necessarily, you know, you got to figure these things out. But I think those things principally, like if you stick to your in life outside of work, would you stand for somebody treating you that way? Probably not. So why should you in business? And I think it's just keep your principles and keep your morals strong, regardless of whether you're at work or in your personal life.
Absolutely. So not to backtrack from what we've just been talking about, but I do think that was really interesting and caught a lot of attention, I'm sure. But so you're now sitting in this digital marketing company that's doing very well. And was the sort of idea that perhaps the company wasn't always going to be run by you, or that perhaps maybe this is something I could sell, I could get further investment on? When did you start to maybe look at that? Because I know for a lot of people that's like, oh, well, this is my baby now. Now I've done it, I couldn't possibly let it go.
I think, again, some of this comes down to being more entrepreneurially minded. So in my head, if someone wants to offer me something for a business over time, I'm always probably open to it. However, I never went out actually to try and sell any of my companies. And a lot of people do go on that journey of kind of trying to actually sell and putting a price on their business. But for me, I just focused on trying to do a good job, trying to scale. Some years we were doubling in size in the year, which came with immense challenges. And I was just trying to scramble to keep my head above water a lot of the time. Off the back of COVID, 2021, we had a huge year. I went and acquired a business in Leicester, a web design agency. I also acquired a Manchester-based creative agency. So my head was fully in that. But off the back of that, we got some really good PR. I also then launched in Toronto in Canada, launched in Germany, just a complete sucker for punishment, basically, taking on too much work. And I think that year we grew like 140% or something. And we were like, God, you know, how are we going to keep the wheels on this thing? but the PR and the press, obviously international growth was really strong, and loads of MMA activity started to happen around us. So a lot of people were reaching out on LinkedIn, were calling me saying, "Oh, we've got a potential buyer that would be interested. Do you want to have a chat?" And I was like, "Oh, I haven't even thought about it. Let's hear them out." I think by the end of that year, I'd had 3 offers. By the start of 2022, there'd been a further 2. Wow. And yeah, one of them, the current now owners, Cadastra, you know, in the kind of initial stages, you have kind of almost like a courtship type stage. So it's kind of like that kind of flirting, trying to figure each other out. I really like the guys. You know, they're true entrepreneurs as well. They've been going for 24, 25 years. They're building up some sort of IPO in the next year or 2. I like their vision. But even then, I had kind of this courtship for a little while, and I got a bit scared and pulled back from the deal, kind of stepped away from it for a couple of months, and then just couldn't stop going back to it in my head, going, well, actually, you know what, I think it is the right time, because for me to get to anywhere close to where they are, it's going to take me another 5-10 years of scaling at this pace, which is going to send me completely grey, old, and I probably won't make it past my 40th birthday at this rate. So I need to do something. So I went back to them and said, look, I'm on board. I'm in. If you want to come back to the table, let's do it. And then we got the deal done within a few months from there. And yeah, November 2022, I sold the majority stake. And here I am a year and a half later, and I'm still very pleased that I made that decision.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And that, no, please. Okay. Yeah, I'm just intrigued about that transition, because you've gone from being the leader, the face of the business, and running the business, and now you're co-CEO.
Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously now I guess you've got other people to answer to, and things people to report to. How was that for you, or how is that for you?
I think for the most part, day to day, you know, part of the negotiation was that I would still kind of run the operational side of the business in EMEA anyway, day to day, and that I'd join the kind of larger group board. So Cadastra as a business has just over 1,000 staff. So for me, it was really interesting to join an international entity, join a board that was that size to support that level of people. And it was something that, you know, again, in my career, I just hadn't really had the experience, or, you know, I'm always looking to learn. So it has worked, and it's worked well. And my co-CEO here in EMEA is a guy called Gustavo, excellent guy. You know, we get on very well, which makes it easier. Obviously, there are some things, some changes and some stuff that comes in that, you know, you go, oh, would I have done that? Would I? But for the most part, you know, there's always, if you communicate, there's a way through it. And there has been changes. The original brand that I built, a company called Digital Ethos, is no more. So now Cadastra, sort of that comes with a little bit of salt in the wounds, but you know, it is what it is. You know, we've got a much more established global brand and entity now to kind of lead the charge with, which makes it a bit easier as well.
Nice. So you're now co-CEO, and you've suddenly found yourself with, I'd hope, a little bit more time on your hands, because you've decided to also pursue an additional business venture. Was that taking place sort of while these deals were happening, or did that fully happen after sort of?
It was. I'd actually started 2-3 years before the exit, but at the time it was more just advisory. And I actually I say the entity really was kind of sat dormant, but what I was doing was spending a lot of time with doing bits of advisory, mentorship. I started working with Virgin Startup Mentors. Really enjoyed doing that for a couple of years, and then I had a few startups and scale-ups say, look, can we just borrow a bit of your time? And then I started to think, well, actually, I'm doing a lot of this stuff. Should I not ask for some equity or for something back in return? So started to do a little bit of sweat equity deals, put a bit of personal cash on the table and some investments, and then it just has evolved. Obviously, getting a kind of a windfall of cash in 2022 has made it easier to deploy more capital and do more there. But for me, really, that feeds my entrepreneurial side. I would say more day to day at the moment, there's kind of a corporate structure to what I do, a bit more red tape. Whereas Tobin Capital still feeds that entrepreneurial piece of me, and I can work with lots of different businesses, lots of different brands, and try and add a bit of extra, you know, support for them.
And within Tobin Capital, you know, when you're looking at, you know, potential, you know, ventures to go after, potential people or businesses or brands to invest in, what do you normally look out for? Is it a gut feeling? Is it a spreadsheet feeling?
It's changed a lot. So early on, I think it was probably gut and looking for good people. Like, who do you get on with? Do you get it? You know, is the idea something you can digest easily? I probably get sent 20 or 30 pitch decks a week, which I do not have the time to read. So in my evenings, I'll have a quick half an hour flick through, and if something really jumps out and I go, okay, I get that, then that will spark my interest, and then maybe I'll explore it a bit further. But yeah, for me, it's very much about, does it have a bit of purpose? Do I think it can be profitable and have some sort of, position in the market that's actually going to allow it to stand out? Do I like the team? And is it something that I can put some value add into as well? So what I don't like the idea of doing is just deploying capital. What I'd prefer to do is have some sort of sway, say, support in what they're doing as well, even if that's a call once a year or a call once a month or whatever it needs to be, but add some strategic value somewhere is what I look for as well. So there are founders out there that are open to that. There's a lot that aren't. So, it's finding those perfect fits as well.
Is there something where you're like, at the moment, I'm not talking about a direct company, but that's looking really interesting at the moment? There's a lot being done sort of in this area at the moment that I'm liking.
There is. There's quite a few projects. I'll talk about it kind of loosely. I'm sure the guy will listen to this at some stage. But the guy that I know has become a friend of mine, has brought some land in Portugal, and there's a mountain there, mountain region. It's a decent size, 50 hectares or so of land. And we're going to convert it into a kind of a digital nomad escape, if you like. So we're going to build some residential houses there and some units, as well as some kind of holiday type lets. And people will be able to go there, get away from the digital world, get away from social media, have some sort of R&R, but with like-minded people. That's the idea. There's a place called Powder Mountain in the US that became super popular for doing that, but for skiing and snowboarding. And this is just kind of a surf Portugal type setup for something similar. So that's really interesting. I think that kind of, I've been going on this kind of, spiritual is not the right word, but this kind of journey of like, what's it all for in my head? Like, I think that's easy to do once you've got some cash. But like, I still chase the dragon a lot. Like I got these exits, and then I go, okay, well, what next? But why? Like what's missing in me that makes me want to just keep chasing? So, I think having these timeouts away from all the distraction is important. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs and people out there that need that and want that. So, and with AI now, being able to cut away from being always on to being off for a while, I think it's going to become more and more important. So that's one that I'm looking into supporting in lots of different ways. But that's a bit out there. It will either really work or it will completely flunk.
I mean, sign me up straight away.
Yeah.
I'm there for a week.
Annoyingly, I've already got my trip to Portugal booked.
Boom.
Yeah.
Good.
It sounds. But was there another one that is kind of on your radar?
There's a few. I mean, really, we've been kind of creating a thesis now at Tobin Capital to go after a mix of biotech, sustainability. Basically, what I really want are businesses that are doing some good as well, giving a bit of purpose. My first couple of investments were into businesses like that, Ecology, Earthly, and Ancestors, and it feels good to be part of those brands. I've chased a few others like SpaceX and a few others that people know, but it's not as fulfilling as the idea of having some kind of deep purpose. Don't get me wrong, SpaceX has a pretty out there purpose to get people to Mars. I mean, it's a good purpose, right?
Yeah.
With a multi-planetary species, sounds pretty cool. But yeah, there's got to be some sort of mission to it as well.
Too right. For those business owners, or startups that are just, starting off on their own, we once again said off camera, we share quite a similar story, just pocket of cash, made a start, hoped for the best kind of thing. What are the benefits to getting on some form of investor? What would you say to those considering it?
I think I actually didn't do it early on. If I look back now on some of those early businesses we spoke about, I think I probably could have done a much better job had I taken on an investor, definitely on the bar high one, and probably on all of them, to be honest. I think knowing what I know about the investing world now as well, it's quite low risk for the founder. If you can raise capital, it's high risk for the investor, but it actually gives you some firepower to go out as the founder and actually scale up faster. So if you approach it the right way and you're willing to give a little bit of the pie away early on, which means you probably have to give a bit more than you may be comfortable with, I think it can really work for people. over the years, there's been a lot of people that chase investment and then they chase constant investment, and that can become a dangerous cycle. So I think you should always have an eye on profitability and how quickly you can get there. But if you stay kind of true to that and you've got like a true north of like, okay, well, that's what profit looks like, I just need this money to accelerate to there, then that's cool. I think it can be really healthy. One thing I think that any person in business should do, I still have them now as well, is have mentors around you. So always have mentors, and you'll find that if you're with a mentor for a year or two, you'll probably extract everything you can from that person, flip them to somebody else, because you're going to learn, in a weekly session, you're going to learn everything there is to know from that person over that time. But always have people around you that have got skill sets that you don't inherently have, and that will just elevate, where you can get to.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of people now that perceive you as that person. I mean, that must be a great thought that you're now offering mentorship to others.
It's nice to be able to give back. I mean, there's lots of gaps I still have as well. You're speaking kind of, openly. But certainly the brands that I do work with, they tend to come to me for kind of commercial growth, marketing, just sometimes just a bit of a sounding board. The bit I enjoy the most is actually just doing some walk and talks, and just like, often you'll find that people actually have the answer, just not the confidence to go ahead with it or to deploy it or to press the button. So a lot of the kind of coaching and mentorship that I do is really just kind of massaging people into the confidence that they need to make these decisions, because we all go through it and we all need to go through it as part of the process.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure we leave your contact details at the end of the video, and we'll round off in a minute, but I'd like to play my second game. If
Let's
that's
do it.
okay with you. Hopefully this one's a bit easier. So I'm now introducing you to Fail or Fiction. Okay, so you've put it nicely earlier off camera, Sophie. It's two truths and a lie.
Essentially, business edition.
Business edition. So I'm going to share with you 3 stories, 3 statements. Okay. And one of them is false, 2 of them are true. You've got to guess or figure out which one the false statement is. Is that all fair?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start with, let me just get my order correct. Okay. Yep. So the first one is JCPenney's fair and square pricing strategy. So in 2012, the retail giant decided to eliminate sales, eliminate coupons, just switching to a straightforward low price model. They thought customers would appreciate the simplicity, but it backfired. Shoppers missed the excitement of sales and perception of getting a deal. The new pricing model confused loyal customers and sales plummeted. The CEO behind the change was ousted, and JCPenney returned to their traditional sales approach in 2013. Now, I think you know this one, because I'm sure you've mentioned it about 27 times. Next, we have the tale of Google Glass.
Okay.
Yeah. In 2013, Google introduced this cutting-edge wearable tech, which was a pair of glasses with built-in displays that allowed users to see information right in front of their eyes. Another Demolition Man kind of thing going on
we
here.
are in the future.
It was hyped as a revolutionary product for augmented reality. However, the device raised privacy concerns and many people feeling uncomfortable being filmed without their knowledge. Additionally, it had a very short battery life, it was expensive and lacked compelling apps. Google eventually halted consumer sales in 2015 and repurposed it for enterprise use. And finally, we're going to look at a tech startup called ThinkFresh. Now, ThinkFresh launched a smart refrigerator that could order groceries for you. So utilising sensors and cameras, the idea was smart ThinkFresh, could look inside the fridge and make orders on your behalf. Sometimes it misidentified items, such as mistaking as a zucchini. Is it a zucchini? Zucchini. I was going to say zucchini for a cucumber, or yogurt for milk, and would reorder random products based on these errors, leading to homes being filled with mismatched groceries and very confused customers. ThinkFresh quickly had to recall the product due to numerous complaints. So we've got JCPenney's pricing structure, we've got Google Glass, and we've got ThinkFresh. One of them is false, completely made up. The other 2 are true. Discuss.
All poor investments, I will say.
Yeah. Terrible investments.
I have brought up Google Glass before.
Yeah, I thought you had.
Unfortunately, I know that one, that was a fail there.
It was. Yeah.
I mean, in theory, it sounds incredibly exciting. I think, like the idea behind it is good, but
it is, and this wearable technology, they will keep trying to spin out.
Oh, they love it, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one else does.
It just doesn't seem to catch on, does it?
No. So unfortunately, we know that's a true. That's a true one.
Unfortunately, that's true. Yeah.
That's true.
So it's between the 2. Any ideas?
Okay, JCPenney's. I get that one. I get you like to see that big writing in red that says that something's 50% off.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when McDonald's did that burger. Do you remember? And it was like the quarter pounder, but it was
I honestly have no idea.
no,
You know what your
it was
motivations
it
are.
was a bigger cut of meat. It was larger than a quarter pounder, but
They'd
because the
changed-
number.
Oh,
Yeah,
the-
it didn't
the
translate.
Big Tasty or whatever it was.
No,
It was something
it was
like,
the
it was. I think it was the mathematical equation. So it was still technically a quarter pounder, but I
but
think
the
that-
number sounded smaller.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see.
And they didn't. No one understood that they
Okay.
were getting more
I know what you
meat.
mean.
People,
Okay.
Yeah.
It was like for children,
Okay.
and it just completely. You can't bring that one up now because I know that that can't be next week's.
No, rub that off.
Um,
Any ideas?
A fridge that orders your groceries for you.
Well, fridges now have got tablets on the front.
They
They've
have.
got- you
The
can watch
Samsung
TV,
one,
can't you?
Do what you want, yeah.
Yeah.
If it feels like it's emptying out, just adds it to the shopping list.
Yeah, and you can do that like where you can press it and they go completely clear now and everything, can't you?
Yeah.
Molly, any ideas? You think
You think
that's
that's
the fake?
fake?
I think that's the fake, yeah. Yeah. I would probably go with the first one as well.
Think
Okay,
fake?
I'll go with the last one. I think this one's fake.
Just the DVA.
I just
It's the
to
competitive
further
edge.
disagree. No, I think that the last one is fake.
So you think? So you're? So just to confirm, you think Think Fresh is?
I understand the psychology of the first one,
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that
so
as well. But
so I'll go with the last one being fake.
Okay. And you think pricing structure's fake? Is
yes.
that correct? So I can confirm that once again Sophia has no qualm of beating the guests
There you
on,
go, well
this,
done. Well done.
on this show. So apparently JCPenney's fair and square pricing strategy was a thing. It lasted about a year.
Okay.
Completely failed thereafter. Which, like I say, if you think of the psychology
get it.
behind it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah, people want to feel like they're getting a deal always,
They
don't
do.
they?
Yeah.
It's like even now at who's Rollback? Is Rollback Asda?
Yeah, that's
Is it?
They
Yeah,
have to
yeah.
put the fact that they've done that on all the products, just so you know. No, this is actually the
Yeah.
lowest we're going.
But we see it all the time with various retailers, even like the Black Friday. You'll see a slight price increase and the run up, and then all of a sudden the price comes down. You know, you think you're getting a deal,
Yeah.
you think you're getting a bargain. But yeah, Think Fresh, completely made up. I mean,
Yeah.
in theory, the tech is pretty much there.
It is.
Yeah.
I'd say. You
It
know, I
is.
think.
Well, hey, maybe this is a thing we can look into.
There you go.
Shall we start something up? Shall we get something done? I think we can do it between us. But yeah, Think Fresh. Was it Think Fresh?
Think Fresh.
Fresh.
Think Fresh, completely made up. So, and we need to start tallying them on this
We
board.
do. Yeah.
Need a bigger board for all your tallies, I think, by the sounds of things. But as we said earlier, we'd love for you, to shout about yourself and get people in contact. I mean, what is next for you? What's next for Tobin Capital and everything, really? What's next?
Yeah, so big focus really just on building out a bit more kind of personal brand perspective, just so I can, continue to do more mentorship work. Always looking for deal flow for Tobin Capital, so people that are looking to raise capital, looking for a bit of support, even if it's just a quick question here and there, happy to do that. I've launched a blog, a newsletter, monthly newsletter. We're slightly behind this month, but monthly newsletter called entrepreneurialedge.blog. We'll pop it obviously on the link as well, so people can follow investment tips, advice, bit of mentorship advice in there as well. And then day job still, driving the agency, hopefully do some sort of IPO next year or two. And then who knows, lots of ideas, just need the time to deploy them. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
And we will 100% share your links below
Thank you.
the video if people are watching it, or in the show notes, wherever you're listening to the podcast. But I really, really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy
you.
man and
Thanks
you've
for
been
having
hard
me.
to pin down.
Mm.
So hopefully we'll catch up again soon. We're practically neighbours, aren't we? We'll grab
Exactly.
dinner or something together at some stage.
I
Are you
love that.
doing anything with the Entrepreneur Awards this year?
I'm not actually. No,
No?
they did chase to see if I was entering. I normally do enter, because again, it's
Yeah.
good PR, but no, I haven't this year.
No. Oh, it's a
No.
shame.
Are you doing it?
We are. I can't
Yeah.
remember what award we went in for.
Don't defer to me.
I don't know. But yeah, we are. We are.
Okay.
But
Fine,
really
fine.
appreciate
I'll be
it.
rooting for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. You heard that here. We've got that on recording. But thank you to you, and thank you to you, of course, for watching, for listening. It really does make our hearts flutter, so to speak. It's been great recording this podcast with you. Please do stay tuned. Make sure you hit the follow button. Follow us on socials. We are How I Failed in Business pretty much across all social media channels. Of course, if you've got a funny story you want to share anonymously, please do email in to howifailedinbusiness@gmail.com, or if you want to sit in the hot seat and hopefully kick Sophia's ass on some of these games at some stage, please do let us know. It'd be great to have you on the show. I've been Rob Spence.
I've been Sophia Grace.
Until next time,
Bye.
all the best.